Hi guys and welcome to my review of the Dell Inspiron 15 7000. This one is the 4K version, but there's also a 1080p version, and there is a whole lot of different configurations available from 8 to 16 gigabytes of RAM, different storage solutions. So I'm pretty sure there will be the right one for you if you decide so to want one. But what is the 15 7000? It is a mainstream multimedia laptop with very premium qualities. So let's take a closer look at it now. So what do we have here? We have aluminum at the top, aluminum at the bottom, and a very nice design. It feels very sturdy, very solid. It is very thin and really nicely, elegantly designed. As you can see here, it just looks beautiful. The only thing here a little bit on the weaker part would be the lid that can be pushed in a little bit, and if you do it faster you will hear some air, but that is nothing that diminishes the qualities. Let's check the ports. Here we have the port for the charging, full-size HDMI, USB 3.0, combined headphone jack. On the front you see the status LED. Here we have the stereo speakers at the bottom, nice rubber feet that protect them from sliding away, and the vents for the cooling. On the right side we have the full-size SD card slot that tucks in the whole SD card, 2 USB 3.0 and the Kensington lock. So what is here to say? Good amount of ports, all very logically placed, all done here. The device looks great. So what's about the inside? First of all, you can't open it with one hand, it will lift. So you will need two hands. That's a minor thing, but still. The keyboard. Now, what do I have to say about that? I like it a lot, but it is definitely not the best one. It could have a little bit more travel. It feels a little bit to bottom out too fast. Otherwise, the design is nice. We have media buttons. We have two-step level backlight. It sounds a lot like a MacBook keyboard and feels like it, but just not reaching the level entirely. The feedback is okay. So it mostly is good, but it's just not the best. But still very nice. As for the trackpad though, this one is more than just nice. It is one of the better ones, maybe one of the best ones I've used. It isn't sticky, it isn't slippery, it is very big. It feels very solid because there is no gap underneath it. You don't hear anything. The click sounds very solid. So this was done very good. The only minor thing here, there is no customization here for multi-finger adjust. That's pretty much the only thing. So let's take a look at the display now. We have a 4K display, 15.6 inches, 16:9 ratio. And one thing that is pretty much obvious, it is extremely beautifully sharp. And it couldn't be done any better. In terms of, if we check the white now. Very nice white. Good white point. There is one thing that has to be mentioned though. I noticed sometimes when I plug in the charger, the whole calibration gets warmer, but I couldn't trigger this all the time. So let's just use this calibration. This one has a really nice white point, ever so slightly on the warm side, but it doesn't really have to be corrected. As for the maximum brightness, we have 100%. It is maybe not the brightest one. You can maybe see this here. It doesn't really reflect correctly over the video. It is still brighter than what you see here on the video, but it is not the brightest display after all. In terms of the lowest setting, that is still totally fine. But if you want to use it in bright sunlight, it could be tight and is still very glossy after all. As for the black levels, these are nice, and once again, the camera won't show it off as great as it actually is. We don't lose any details here. The contrast between dark and bright is done very nicely and just looks great, same as the colors. Vibrant, vivid, almost punchy, but definitely still on the correct side. Not inaccurate or something like that. It still looks quite nice. So also, if we check the viewing angles real quick, again, the camera won't show it off, but the viewing angles are totally fine. Nothing to say otherwise. The only thing that has to be shown off a little bit is the scaling. As you can see, we have so tiny controls. So every app that isn't done right in terms of scaling will just look very small. And if I, for example, did some video editing, I decided to go to 1080p, just not having to hassle with it. Of course, you then lose the qualities of 1080p, but still it was better than having all those miniature icons here available. Okay, let's take a look at the sound now. We have bottom facing stereo speakers. How well do they sound? Once again, first thing that has to be mentioned, we have max audio here as on pretty much all the Dell devices. That gives you quite a lot of room to improve the sound and make it better. I did what I could do, but there is one thing that has to be mentioned. The maximum volume is very loud, as you could maybe notice here on this video, but it also tends to slightly overdrive the bass on certain music parts and so on, and also the highs can crackle a little bit. You can diminish this by just going a little bit lower in terms of volume, 70-80%, and you should be fine. But if you have also lower quality YouTube videos, you hear this distortion of the highs a little bit, because I noticed pretty much all laptops with an aluminum chassis tend to have this issue. So the qualities are great. We have bass, we have mids, and the highs are the only maybe slightly weaker thing, because due to the bottom facing, I think they sound a little bit too muffled, and even if you boost the treble, it will still be there. And due to bottom firing, once you have them on your laps, the highs will be completely blocked. So that's it for the sound. What do we have in terms of performance? Let's check the SSD first here. The SSD itself is very fast, 460 read, 400 write. Not the fastest, but still way above average and nothing to complain. If you check the modern UI apps here, very smooth, very responsive, nothing to say otherwise. If we check, for example, Internet Explorer now, using the touchscreen, super smooth. Using the touchpad as well, all good here. And of course with the mouse, this doesn't have to be shown. The performance though isn't that good. We have an Intel i7 5500U, and if you check Chrome now, yeah, this doesn't look so great. Very choppy. With the trackpad, it's not really any better, as you can see here. So quite disappointed here. And with the mouse though, then again, things are fine. If you use it with a mouse, there shouldn't be an issue. But if you try to use the touchscreen, then it won't be the best experience after all. And I think I have to blame the 4K screen display for this, because on a 1080p display, I've seen Chrome behaving way better already. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Otherwise, we have a Radeon graphics card, and it should be good enough for 1080p games with lower to medium settings, as long as you don't use the most demanding games. Let's get to the battery life now. 1 hour of charging gets you to 63%, 2 hours and 22 get you to 99%, and at 3 hours you are at 100, so the last percent will just take a little bit longer, as it usually does, but still okay. We have a 55.8 milliwatt hours battery, and how long does it last? Let's check. We had 3 hours here once again. That was with 100% of brightness and normal tasks. Here we have 4 hours, that was with closer to 70-80% of brightness. Those 2.5 hours are with video editing and 100% brightness, so definitely higher load. Those 10 and 12 hours, just forget about it, same as the 6 hours. And here we have 4.5. So I would say expect about an average of 4 hours with using a display brightness of 70-80%, and you won't really want to go lower, because the display is just too great to have a dull picture with 50-60% of brightness. But if you decide so to do, it is still okay. 4 hours with a panel high resolution as this one and an i7 just has this caveat. Otherwise, temperature was totally fine, no problems here at all, but the noise level is one thing I am not so happy, and I will start a CPU burn-in test so you can hear the fan spinning. In normal use, I would say just browsing, watching videos, typing and so on, I would say 80% it is silent and you won't hear anything. There is a little bit of coil whine, but you have to get close to like 10-20 centimeters to have the chance to hear it. So I wouldn't bother about this at all. This is totally fine. The fan speed though, 80% silent in idle mode is not the best value. I had better ones already. And a lot of times it will just have small bursts of fan speeds roaring up. And it doesn't have the most subtle sound, as you can see here. It sounds like a small but very high spinning vacuum cleaner fan. And this is not even the highest volume. This is just for you to see. Like I said, in normal use, you won't really hear it a lot. But if you decide so to game or do video rendering and so on, you will definitely hear it more of the time. Not the biggest issue once you use maybe headphones or so, but if you are in a warmer environment, the fans will kick in more often. That can become a little bit annoying from time to time. Otherwise, in terms of software, there's not really anything to say. Pretty much bare bone Windows. A few additions like the Max Audio software, but therefore not anything else. No mouse, no track software, no really any bloat. So here was done everything very fine. Let me quickly check something. Okay, let's get to the recap then. Design and build quality couldn't possibly done any better. It just feels premium. It just feels solid, and it is pretty much the same chassis as the Dell XPS 15, which is quietly higher priced, I think, and it does an overall great job. You have a very good keyboard, not the best one, but for a mainstream device, it is more than just okay, and therefore you get a really nice trackpad. The display, extremely beautiful, with the only caveat of maybe not being super bright, and with the scaling issues. It still is something to consider even these days. With Windows 10 it could be better, but I wouldn't count on it. So if you want to be on the more future-proof side, maybe go for 4K. But if you want something solid right now and don't hustle with anything with scaling issues, maybe go for the 1080p display. Sound can get very loud, can sound very good, but also can sound a little bit muffled and can distort a little bit. So if you use the right adjustments and settings and don't use it too loud, you will still have a quite nice experience. In terms of performance, for video rendering it was fine, for everyday normal use it was fine. It was just Chrome where it behaved quite a bit odd using it with the touchscreen or with the trackpad, because otherwise I noticed it is not the lightest feeling and not the most snappy feeling performance, and I blame the 4K display. If you use the 1080p, I think most of this will be gone, because I used so many lower spec devices with a 1080p that seemed to perform more lightweight. They could handle it better. Also, temperature was fine, didn't really have any problems here, but the noise, maybe because it is almost too aggressive in terms of fan speed, they burst up quite often, quite not loud, but can get annoying because there are those short bursts. And in higher performance you will hear them a lot more, and it's just not the most subtle sound. In terms of software though, everything was done fine. It's just a little bit of unspectacular, and I would wish for a little bit more options in terms for the trackpad, like multi-finger gestures. So would I recommend it? It really depends on the price, because let's try to look for flaws here. Design? Definitely not. Display? Definitely not. Sound? Also not. Performance is the one thing where it could lag for a few people, but still be good enough for most of the mainstream people which this device is focused on. The noise is, I would say, the biggest weakness here, because it can become annoying. If you don't really care that much, and maybe I'm a little bit too sensitive about it, then yes. So, is anything bad left? Not really. It really depends on the price and on what configuration you want. I'm not sure this one costs like 1,000 euros. I'm not entirely sure, but it would definitely be worth it. But I think personally I would maybe go for the 1080p version, maybe even for the i5 version, but with an SSD, for the following reasons. I wouldn't have to have any issues with scaling. I would have a little bit more battery life maybe, but I don't care about that. I would have the better performance and maybe the higher brighter screen, but that's pretty much all up. And otherwise this device is really nice, really nice. So yeah, I don't really know what to add anymore. If you have anything you want to know, leave it in the comments. Please rate, subscribe and comment. Until next time, bye.